You know, if you've ever cracked open a literature textbook, you've probably wrestled with Samuel Beckett's masterpiece, Waiting for Godot. It's brilliant, it's bleak, and yeah, it's famously hard to pin down. Most people see it as the ultimate play about, well, meaninglessness. But what if the key to unlocking it isn't in Western philosophy at all? What if it's somewhere completely unexpected? Let's dive into that. So here's a fascinating idea. What if the key to this icon of Western modernism is actually in the East? Today, we're going to see how the ancient Hindu spiritual text, the Bhagavad Gita, gives us an incredible lens to diagnose exactly what is happening in Beckett's play. We're using an ancient key for a very modern lock. Okay, so first things first, let's look at the classic interpretation. The usual take is that Waiting for Godot is this huge monument to absurdism. You know, a tragic, sometimes funny look at a world with no purpose, no God, where literally nothing happens. Let's call this interpretation the symptom that we're about to investigate. The setup is deceptively simple, right? You've got two guys, Vladimir and Estragon, and they're waiting by a tree for some person named Godot. Spoiler alert, Godot never shows up. They are just stuck in this loop, totally unable to act, unable to leave. Their despair is this chronic, endless thing. They're paralyzed. And that paralysis, that feeling of nothing to be done, is our first major clue. Now, this is where it gets interesting. That feeling of paralysis has a really powerful parallel. In the Bhagavad Gita, the great warrior Arjuna also has this moment of total crisis, a complete paralysis of will right there on the battlefield. But here's the difference. His crisis has a clear cause, a conflict of duty, and most importantly, he has a divine guide, Krishna, to talk him through it. Vladimir and Estragon, they have the same paralysis, but no guide, no clear reason why. They're just stuck. So, what if we use the Gita as more than just a comparison? What if we use it like a diagnostic tool? Let's take its incredibly deep psychological and spiritual map and use it to analyze the symptoms we're seeing in Beckett's characters. You'll be surprised how perfectly the language of this ancient text fits their modern condition. Okay, one of the central teachings in the Gita is something called Nishkama Karma. Now, this is the idea that you should perform your actions, your duty, without being attached to the results, or the fruits of your labor, as they call it. The freedom, the liberation, comes from the doing itself, not from what you get at the end. It's a game-changing concept, and it is absolutely key to understanding where our two characters go so wrong. And this just nails the problem, doesn't it? Vladimir and Estragon are the living, breathing opposite of Nishkama Karma. Every single thing they do, or rather don't do, is chained to one single outcome, Godot showing up. And because that outcome never happens, their actions are pointless. They're trapped. They aren't just acting with attachment. They are literally paralyzed by their attachment. All right, let's look at another huge idea, kala, or time. In the Gita's worldview, time isn't a straight line that marches forward from past to future. It's a cycle, an eternal wheel. Think creation, destruction, and then renewal, over and over. So how does this pop up in Beckett's world? Well, Beckett gives us a corrupted, broken version of that cycle. The play famously ends each act with this exact heartbreaking exchange. It creates this perfect, miserable loop. This isn't a cycle of renewal. It's a cycle of absolute stagnation. For them, tomorrow isn't a fresh start. It's just a depressing rerun of today. They're stuck on a wheel that's spinning in the mud. And this brings us right to the title of the play. We're always so focused on who Godot is, but hang on. What if the most important word in that title isn't Godot at all? What if it's waiting? What if the act of waiting is the real point of the whole thing? You know, when you see it through that lens, the title becomes a diagnosis. It's describing a state of being, a life lived perpetually on hold. It's about how we can devalue the present moment by pinning all our hopes and dreams on a future that might not even exist. The waiting itself becomes a prison we build for ourselves, brick by brick, just to avoid living in the now. So this is the big question, right? If the suffering, the paralysis, comes from the waiting itself, from being completely attached to a future that never arrives, then who or what is Godot really? Okay, let's get to the very heart of this diagnosis. Using the Gita's framework, we can finally start to see Godot not as a person, but as the very source of our character's spiritual sickness. And to do that, we need one last crucial concept from the Gita, Maya. Maya is essentially the cosmic illusion. It's this veil that hides the true nature of reality. It's what makes us chase after phantoms, mistake temporary things for permanent ones, and look for external fixes to our internal problems. It's the force that keeps us stuck in these cycles of suffering.
And here it is, the central idea. Godot is Maya. He's not a person. He is the illusion. He is the grand mirage they're staring at, the ultimate excuse that stops them from ever looking at their own reality, their own power to act, their own inner lives. Their belief that some external figure is going to come and save them, that is the ultimate trick of Maya.
And when you lay it all out like this, it just clicks, doesn't it? Their meaningless activity is a failure of karma. Their obsession with getting a result is the exact opposite of Nishkama Karma. The whole idea of Godot himself is the veil of Maya. Their endless, repetitive day is a broken version of Kala. And the liberation they want, moksha, is impossible to reach because they are looking for it in all the wrong places.
So what makes this reading so powerful? Well, it doesn't just give us a diagnosis for the problem in the play. It actually offers a kind of philosophical cure for the very meaninglessness it shows us.
Thinking about it this way completely reframes the entire play. Suddenly, it's not just a cry of despair into a godless universe. It's more like a precise, almost clinical study of a spiritual illness. The void, the meaninglessness, isn't something out there in the world. It's an internal state, one created by our own attachments and illusions. So the Gita actually offers a prescription. The problem isn't just absurdity, it's Maya, illusion. The suffering isn't random, it's caused by acting with attachment. And the cure? Well, the cure isn't waiting around for some external savior to show up. The cure is internal. It's about finding detachment and performing meaningful action right here, right now. Liberation is something you find within yourself, not on the side of a road waiting for someone named Godot. And this leaves us with one final, really provocative thought. Beckett's play presents its own kind of battlefield, doesn't it? Just like the one Arjuna faced. But unlike Arjuna, who ultimately chooses to act, Vladimir and Estragon stay frozen. As long as their words and their actions are totally disconnected, they stay trapped on the battlefield of their own minds, waiting for a savior who is nothing but a shadow. And the question it leaves for us is, how often do we do the very same thing?